What is the Bigfoot alien Neanderthal connection? I know it sounds strange. How are they at all connected? Maybe they're not, but it's definitely got me thinking about the idea of different dimensions existing one on top of another in the exact same location. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about some crazy stuff today. Hello and welcome. This is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard, and this is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. I give you practical tools to help you evolve. We talk about real esoteric spirituality without all of the nonsense. Okay, so I just recently uploaded a video which I found very interesting, which was that scientists had come to the conclusion that there might be a link between a electromagnetic shift in the Earth's atmosphere and the extinction of Neanderthals as well as many other species. Because, right around that same time, when the Neanderthals started to go away, a lot of other animals started going away. I mean, we don't have cave bears, we don't have saber-toothed tigers, we don't have woolly mammoths, we don't have a lot of things we used to have. And the truth is, science doesn't really know. They come to conclusions, as I said, in the video. When I was a kid, the accepted scientific understanding was that human beings had, through warfare, killed off all of the Neanderthals. And now a completely different idea. One of them is that the Neanderthals were absorbed into the gene pool of human beings, and there was just so many more modern humans than Neanderthals that now we have, including myself, we have up to 2% Neanderthal DNA. But looking at this magnetosphere event, this magnetic shift called the Lachamps event, where there was not a complete shift of the poles, the magnetic poles, but there was a big magnetic shift where the magnetosphere had receded significantly, which would have in and of itself resulted in a lot more solar radiation coming into the Earth. And scientists, I can't believe I've heard it, but there's some mainstream science to this, that heightened solar radiation can start flipping on different genes in the body, turning some off, turning some on. Now, from my perspective, knowing what I know and having experienced what I've experienced, the sun is not just some big ball of burning helium out there that's sending radiation and that somehow, in some way, messes with your DNA. I believe that the sun is a conscious being, and that this conscious being, like all things in existence, are linked together. We are in the third dimension. We are in apparently a lower vibration of the third dimension, which gives us the illusion of being isolated. So even though our ancestors all saw creation, rocks, trees, clouds, water, animals, people, we all saw this as a web of life force energy filled with consciousness. My ancestors called it the web of weird. And so it wasn't until the introduction of the monotheist religion, the Christian religion, where the earth was desacralized. The earth was seen as being evil, and the earth was associated with the devil. And so this has actually created the foundation for modern science. This is why modern science in the West, especially, sees that there's no life in anything. Chinese medicine still to this day, sees things a little differently, and uses the elements, and that your emotions and your mindset have a big connection with the 5 elements and the 5, all that stuff. So it is actually an aberration. The way that we look at the world now, the way that we are programmed to look at the world, our educational system, our religious system, whether you're Christian or not. I don't care if you were born into a religious family. I don't care if you're atheist or if you believe in religion or not. If you were born in the modern world, especially in the Western world, you have been programmed with the Christian mindset of desacralizing physical reality, taking the sacredness, the power out of our physical world. So when you start to have the kinds of experiences that I share about, what I've gone through recently, as well as we look at what our ancestors believed going back before 2,000 years ago, then we realize that it's not some random event. And this is why we don't have to be afraid of the sun. One of the biggest things on the internet, even people who are interested in things like the solar flash event, they're saying, you have to be careful because every so many thousand years there's this solar flare event that wipes out all life. And when you really research that turns out to be nonsense. But there has been solar events, and there has been electromagnetic events that have coincided with extinctions and the rise of new species. So I talked about in a previous video, the idea that perhaps what happened 42,000 years ago with the Lachamps event, which was when the magnetosphere reduced its magnetic charge significantly. I thought, well, what if there was also a solar flash event? There was increased solar radiation that was specifically targeted to flip on the DNA so that modern humans would begin evolving, right? And then that would mean, and it also turned off some switches in the DNA of Neanderthals so that they couldn't procreate. That was an interesting idea. But what I'm thinking about today, because I've been thinking about this, looking into other things, I personally have experienced Sasquatch. It was in 2001, and I was up in the Sierras, the Sierra Nevada mountains, up in the wilderness, easily some of the most wild, rugged wilderness on the planet. And one of, if not the most concentrated, powerful energy I've ever experienced. And that is the Sierra Nevada mountains. And that has to do, I think, with the fact that it's made up of entirely of granite. It's, we're talking about, a huge mountain range that goes all the way up and down California. And we're talking 14,000 foot peaks. And so being at 10,000 feet, for hundreds of miles is not unusual. And I used to spend lots of time up there. I would go up there by myself backpacking, and I would go, 20 miles in to the middle of these very intense wilderness. And I would do it when there wasn't, a lot of people around. It would be usually in September when everybody was off going back to school. And so I'd be out in the middle of the wilderness all by myself. And 2001, I went up there, and I made a video about it. If you know how to search my channel, you can search my channel for the video. But I specifically meditated about meeting Sasquatch. Now, I didn't know nearly what I know now about different dimensional beings. I knew that Sasquatch was seen as a shapeshifter that was not part of our dimension, was a protector. So I had heard that, that's a very common understanding from Native Americans, and actually anybody who's experienced Sasquatch in any real way, even people who don't believe in that stuff, will eventually come away with this thing like, there's something about these creatures that are, you just can't, it doesn't make any sense. So I had meditated, and what I didn't realize what I was doing is I was doing CE5. But I was meditating. I knew where I was going to be camping, and I was meditating, and I was reaching out to Sasquatch, and I was saying, I would like to have an experience with you. I would like to meet you. And I meditated, I don't know how long, for a couple of weeks, and then went up there and, forgot about it. It was actually 9/11. I was up there during 9/11, which was really interesting. And in fact, the Sasquatch showed up the night of 9/11. Night before, 9/10, I think he showed up, 9/10. And so, anyway, I've talked about it at length. I won't go into the detail of it, but the experience I had with that creature was one of the two most frightening experiences of my life. Both of those most frightening experiences had to do with being in physical contact with beings of other dimensions. And I absolutely knew, I was convinced that Sasquatch was not a three-dimensional being, and the effect that that interaction had on me completely shifted me in all kinds of ways. So I have that experience. I now have the interdimensional experience with higher dimensional beings of light who are also called extraterrestrials. Again, has nothing to do with aliens. Aliens are a human 3D situation. I can't talk about it on this channel. I talk about it on my Rumble channel. If you want me to explain to you what the difference between aliens and extraterrestrials are, go on to my Rumble channel. So I forgot what I was saying. Anyway, point being is that now that I've been thinking about this, I'm starting to think that there are multiple dimensions that sit right on top of each other. So there's a belief among people who believe in the solar flash event, people who believe that we are going to shift up to 5D. I personally resist this belief because I cannot tolerate spiritual bigotry. I can't tolerate it. I couldn't tolerate it with Christianity. Christianity had spiritual bigotry, which was if you believed the way that I believe, then you're part of the club and you'll go to heaven. But if you don't believe what I believe, that in and of itself excludes you from the club, and just that will make you go to hell, which is really the bottom line of Christianity. Christianity is, this is why Christians talk about faith, being a believer. Has nothing to do with your actual spiritual state of being, how you live your life, how you interact with others. And they'll even tell you that. You can't earn your way into heaven. The only way is accepting Jesus' sacrifice, which means you have to intellectually believe it. If you don't intellectually believe it, then it doesn't take, even though Jesus supposedly died for all human beings. But if you don't believe it, it won't take. And then you end up going to hell forever. And I couldn't tolerate, that's the main reason I walked away from Christianity. I didn't walk away because I stopped believing. I still believed it. I just couldn't tolerate it. And I couldn't worship a God that did that. And I said, listen, if the friends that I love who don't believe the way I do are going to hell, I'm going with them because it's just not right. Of course, my views changed pretty rapidly after that. It took a while. I had to deprogram myself from that cult, but eventually I got through it. So I don't like spiritual bigotry, and I don't like the idea that many people say that, only if your heart is open, only if you're at a certain level of awareness, then you will make the shift up to 5D. I don't like that. I don't like that for so many reasons. Number one, because I don't want to be excluded. The thought of, me not being able to go, again, this has to do like Christianity has the rapture. Maybe this is why I don't like it, because the rapture, the the belief in the rapture is that people who believe in Jesus, when Jesus comes, they'll go to the new heaven and the new earth, and other people won't. They'll have to stay here during the 7-year tribulation of hell. And I just, that was just it's just unfair. And I just don't like it. I mean, I'm not perfect, and I don't know what perfection is. And I want to go up to 5D, and everything that I've experienced seems to lead to the conclusion that I'm going. I mean, I don't know why my ET friends would have put so much time and effort into me and given me so much experiences and get me hooked up to their dimension. I'm in constant communication with them. Why would they do that if they were going to leave me behind? So it's hard for me to believe that I'll get left behind. And if I'm as screwed up as I am, then I think it's only fair that everybody come with us. Having said that, I don't know that to be a fact. And what I was thinking about, let's just take Sasquatch, for instance. Sasquatch is definitely an interdimensional being. I experienced it. So I know for a fact that being is it lives in a higher dimension. But Sasquatch seems to come in and out of our vibration of the third dimension. That seems to be pretty clear. That's a universal experience. People who are tracking Bigfoot or tracking Yeti, there'll be tracks in the snow that will literally disappear. And you'll be in this snow field where there's no forest, and it's like it got picked up out of nowhere. And what cultures that are familiar with these creatures will say is that, they shift in and out of our dimension all the time. And they live in a version of Earth that's almost identical to ours, and they shift in and out of it. And, also what you see in connection with, this is why I have aliens or, nice, beautiful ETs, not the frightening looking ones that mainstream media wants you to see. But you've got Bigfoot and these beautiful ET beings together, because Sasquatch also seems to have the ability to shamanically float around as an orb or as a being of light. And this is, if you've ever listened to Sierra sounds or investigated those guys, that goes all the way back to the 70s, and these are guys who were up in the Sierras, same region I was in, and they brought way back then a tape recorder, and they tape recorded these Sasquatches communicating, and it sounds really weird. I mean, their voices are crazy, strange, and weird, and the range they have is just unbelievable. And it sounds like they're speaking some kind of what sounds like some kind of like Japanese or Asian, hard Asian language. But they also talked about that, during the day there would be these orbs that would fly around in the camp, or there would be these shafts of light that would go through, and they connected the two. And there are people who know how to interact with Sasquatch, that they will sometimes show up as beings of light. And there's no shortage of experiences out there of people where if you go to some part, some location that is known to have electromagnetic anomalies, those will be sort of portals between the dimensions where, different beings will sort of kind of float in and out through the portal, and all kinds of crazy things happen. Not just higher dimensional beings, but lower dimensional beings as well. And a lot of times you will see Sasquatch and ET craft, in the same location. And that brings up all kinds of thoughts. Are these guys in cahoots with each other? Do they communicate with each other? Or is it a result of a shift in the dimensions, where you have a portal between the dimensions where you can kind of see through all of them all at the same time? And the reason I start thinking that is because when you start investigating the dogman, the dogman phenomenon is very interesting. Also with Mothman. These are very interesting. Now, my personal belief, not having experienced those beings, thank the gods, is that I think Dogman is a lower dimensional being. And I think that's probably true with Mothman as well. These are beings that are at a lower dimension, either in our, a lower dimension beneath us in the third dimension, or maybe in the second dimension. I don't know. And one of the things I found most interesting, I was watching some documentary about the Dogman, or the Dogman was part of the documentary. I can't remember. And there was a guy who bought a farm, and he bought a farm, and this was somewhere in the Midwest. And the people around said, "Oh yeah, so the Wolfman lives there." And he's like, "Great, fine." He's like, "No, serious. The Wolfman lives on your property, and he's going to eat your sheep or your cows or whatever. So just be aware of that." And he's like, "Yeah, fine, whatever." And sure enough, something would, attack his deer on his property or sheep or something like that, and would surgically remove organs. Strangest thing. And it's in the same, there's a stretch of road where people have seen this Dogman creature, like not a wolfman, a Dogman, but like a 7-foot tall, dog being on two legs that looks like half man, half German Shepherd. And they'll find him eating some entrails of some animal. And so all he knew is that something was attacking and butchering his animals. And so what he did is he set up a trail cam. Now what was interesting is what the trail cam caught. So interesting. I think I remember seeing pictures of it. But what the trail cam caught was that a mist would come in, surround the animal, and then when the mist would float away, the animal would be, having been mutilated. So what's interesting about that, which is what makes me think it is a lower dimensional being, is because if there's a human around to look at whatever this creature is, it will instantly manifest as a Dogman. But if there isn't a human around to watch it and it's captured by a video camera, and the person who's doing it doesn't have any clear intent on why they're doing it, again, the double slit experiment, it shows up as this amorphous mist. So that comes into the understanding that our dimension and everything in our dimension is our intention manifested. And this is going to make sense later, so hang on to this. So the Dogman really isn't a Dogman in the second dimension. Whatever he is in the second dimension, he's a creature. And he's obviously, the lower you go in dimensions, the more hostile, the more aggressive, the more violent. Which is why if a human is looking at a two-dimensional being, what our brains will do is our brains will then interpret that. And then that being will then manifest in the way that we interpret it. Does that make sense? So when there isn't a person there to watch it, just like the double slit experiment, then it's just an amorphous blob. But the intent is to, is predatory. Catch and kill and eat. So we can feel that. So when we feel that, we instantaneously see it as a Dogman, and it becomes that, for us. So that brings up a lot of things having to do with Sasquatch, because Sasquatch also can manifest in multiple ways. Opens up a lot with that. But I had a belief. I wrote a movie script about it. I have no idea where it is. I think it's in storage somewhere in Seattle, Washington or something. But I wrote a movie about what I believe happened. I came up with this a long time ago, and I believe I was channeling this information. But, there was a point in time when there was multiple two-legged hominid beings on planet Earth. There were proto-humans, and then there was a bunch of other beings that had evolved different traits. And simultaneously, when there were proto-humans around, there was these other beings, I forget what they were called, not to mention Gigantopithecus, which is something else, but there were these other beings, and this was like 2 million years ago, and they were similar to humans. They walked around on two legs, but they were much more thick and muscular, and they had these huge jaws, and they lived, you'd be walking around Africa, and you would have seen a proto-human, you would have seen one of these, two-legged gorilla things, you would have seen, all kinds of different proto-hominids walking around. But according to the archaeological record in our 3D, those more robust beings died out. Or did they? Because we do have, all we have is teeth, which is really interesting. But we have teeth of a being that is called Gigantopithecus. Now, depending on who you talk to, your average academic is going to turn Gigantopithecus into a giant gorilla or a giant, some other giant ape like we have. But the truth is that the teeth actually seem to indicate that this was a two-legged being. But when you look at the size of the teeth, the being has to be between 7 and 9 feet tall, which is why it's called Gigantopithecus. And so we don't have any other things left by Gigantopithecus, because supposedly they were in a place where the bones, it was tropical. So, but the idea is that they came over the land bridge and came over to the U.S. and they migrated to Tibet, into the Himalayas and that kind of thing. And I came to the conclusion back then that they had evolved. They had evolved into another dimension because of the way that they interacted with reality. And my thought process was that as human beings were evolving, they became more intellectual, which created a specific vibration. I didn't really understand what I was saying back then, but what I was saying was that human beings evolved into this very intellectual vibration of the third dimension, and that Gigantopithecus evolved into a more spiritual mindset. And bear in mind that Gigantopithecus and human beings they're both from an Earth. They share the same ancestor, which means that they split off and went into different directions in terms of their evolution. And so I think at one point, either human beings became so intellectual that they went down a notch into a lower vibrational state of 3D, and or Gigantopithecus became more spiritually minded and vibrated up a level. And so Gigantopithecus now is Bigfoot, and it vacillates back and forth between these two dimensions. And or human beings vacillate, because we only see Bigfoot in very dense wilderness, and the energy in wilderness is very different. I mean, if you've spent any time alone in high vibrational wilderness, like up in the Sierras, if you spend a week by yourself, and I would spend 2 weeks by myself, but 1 week by yourself, you start to shift, you start to change, and all kinds of strange things would happen. And I would have, spirit beings show up in the middle of the night and crazy dreams, and I could just feel that there was sometimes when I felt like if I stayed here long, I'm just going to disappear out of the third dimension. And whenever I would drive down the mountain, after I hit about 5,000 or 6,000 feet, or maybe 3,000 or 4,000 feet, I would hit this wall, and I would begin to get very sad. In fact, I would weep because I would feel myself being disconnected from that higher vibrational energy. And so the only places you see Sasquatch are in very thick forests, and I don't think it's because that's where they need to live. I think that's, those intense wilderness places are portals between dimensions. This is my thinking now. So now we get back to Neanderthals. So Neanderthals went out of existence. They were, with us, with human beings. They were walking around the earth the same time we were. They had been here much longer. They had been here for 400,000 years. We at that time had only been around, a few thousand years. We're barely 100,000 years old. So we had only been modern human beings for maybe 20, 30,000 years. So they'd been here a much longer time than we had. And 42,000 years ago, that's when they started to die off. So now my thought is this: what if during that Lechamps event, the magnetic field had been reduced to such a level that there was a lot more solar radiation? Maybe there was even a solar event. If it was a conscious event, maybe it was a solar wave event that was specifically designed to split between, different levels of the third dimension. And what if what really happened is the opposite of what happened with Gigantopithecus? What if what really happened is that the Neanderthals stayed in a lower vibration of 3D and we shifted up one, or they shifted down one? Because that's what's happening right now. What's happening right now is we have a similar kind of geomagnetic event happening to Earth, same as the Lechamps event. We have severely reduced magnetic field. My ET friends have been very clear that the reduction in the magnetic field is what allows me to be able to communicate with them, and it allows them to, increase their presence here in 3D. But what if that same thing happened? And so right now, when people are talking about this idea that, lower awareness, people that have a lower awareness are going to stay in a lower vibration or sink down into a lower vibration of 3D, and those with a higher awareness will make the choice to choose to cross over the bridge and go to a higher 5D. What if history is repeating itself? And what we are is we're going to shift up. And later on we'll talk about, those previous humans, and there will be a new race of human beings different from us. I'm saying this because my ET friends have said some very interesting and strange things to me, which were very challenging to hear. Those first 3 months were, as very challenging. My reality just completely came apart. But there was times in the beginning where they were coming every single night and they were doing all kinds of energy work, and they were like energetically hooking me up to something. In fact, again, my right ear is always, buzzing and always closed. Except rarely, if I go up in a plane or something, it might pop open. But, when I am getting a download from my higher dimensional friends, my right ear always buzzes. And what I've come to believe is that there's some kind of, they hooked up some kind of energetic, USB port to my brain, so that they could communicate with me and have an energetic connection with me. And I have this feeling, I believe I was told this was very hard to hear, but that I was hooked up to a ship. So I'm energetically hooked up to some higher dimensional ship out there. Maybe. Again, these are all things. This goes. I have a filter. I have a folder in my head of things like, I have no idea if that's true or not. I could be making that up, and that's part of it. But one of the things they said is that if I interpret it correctly, they've been switching on dormant things in my DNA. And so I'm not the same being I was a year ago. There are things that have shifted in me according to them and according to my experience as well. My experience is that my body is changing. My experience is that I'm able to shift my internal consciousness much faster than I used to. I'm able to shift out of emotional states much faster than I used to. And in fact, when we have a lot of solar radiation hit the earth and/or a lot of higher dimensional energy coming my way, one of the ways you're interacting with higher dimensional energy is you'll feel something that feels like anxiety. You might feel like a lot of energy going into your chest. At first I thought I was having like heart palpitations or something like that, until I realized that what's happening is that when I really listened to it, it felt like it was an electromagnetic energy that was higher in vibration than our third dimension. So now I know when it comes. When it hits me, I know what it is, and it doesn't freak me out. But I kind of forgot what I was saying. But that energy is shifting me. Oh, what I was going to say is that when there's a lot of solar radiation or a lot of higher dimensional energy that's hitting me, it creates sometimes anxiety, because what's happening is I'm slipping out of my third dimensional state, which of course we believe is reality. And if you start shifting out of your reality, you think you're dying. So it can cause anxiety. It can cause just this, this fear. You don't know what's going on. And I've learned now that when I feel that, what I do is I relax and I breathe it in. And what will happen is I'll start to shift into a higher emotional, psychological, energetic, and spiritual state. And that's really all that 5D is. I was given a window of 5D, and that's all it was. And I had the ability, if I relaxed into it, the energy would get really high, and it's full of love and bliss, and it's really intense and different. It's not that it's, without, it's, the part of me that has discomfort, because you're leaving your reality, you're going somewhere else. But I had the ability to control that. If I chose to focus on the anxiety, I would shift back down. Or if I chose to say, okay, I got to focus on this task right now, I could shift back down into a lower state. When I was in that 5D state, I could turn the knob up and down. Looking back on it, I wish that all I had done is just focused on turning the knob up and see how far I could go. But it was my first time in it, I was learning. But when it hits me now, when we have these solar events that are hitting Earth and I can feel it, what I do is now I just sink into it and I start to go to a higher place. What that means is that when the solar flash, the solar wave event continues to hit the Earth, every human being is going to have this opportunity. They're going to be given an opportunity to relax and accept this higher vibration, to face their fear and let go of their attachment to what they know reality to be, which includes also letting go of your limited understanding of yourself and accepting a much larger understanding of yourself that, again, on paper it looks good. Who doesn't want to feel awesome? I want to be this awesome, powerful being, until you experience it. When you're given the opportunity to become an awesome, powerful being, you realize that means letting go of what you understand. And it's no longer, a big ego trip. In fact, your ego gets annihilated the more advanced you become. And so we have to choose. We have to choose to accept this energy and move on. This is why some people are so frightened of ETs. And again, not aliens, something else. But some people are really frightened of ETs because on an unconscious level, they know their energy represents shifting and letting go and dying to what you know. So it makes me wonder if these people are right. I don't like the idea, but it makes me wonder if what is going to happen is people will choose to accept the energy. It has nothing to do with being awake, Please stop talking that way. It hurts me when I have to read comments where somebody says, only those whose hearts are awake and the bad people won't make it. It really hurts me when you talk like that. Because I want everybody to make it, and I have compassion for everybody. I don't care how screwed up they are. It doesn't mean I want to hang out with them if they're toxic, but I have compassion for everybody. They're in pain. People who are abusive and violent and toxic, they're in pain, and I have compassion for them, and I want them to make it. And everybody can make it if they just simply decide to go, you know what, I'm just going to focus on going in the higher direction. That's all it takes, is just the desire and the focus. And everybody can make it. So there's plenty of room for everybody on the bus. But I'm open to the possibility that even though I don't like it, it may be a choice. People have a choice now. You want to drink yourself to death and do drugs and gamble and destroy your life, you can choose to do that. You want to stay in the victim mentality, you can choose to do that. Or you can make the decision to choose to go beyond and grow past and evolve. And that is the tough road. So it is a challenging road, but I'm interested to see what happens. So those are some of my thoughts. Bigfoot, alien, Neanderthal connection, this idea that you could be in one spot, where I'm sitting right now, there might be multiple worlds, that look identical or almost identical to the one I'm in. And in each, different dimension, there's different beings, maybe even different versions of myself. Who the heck knows? Reality has completely shifted for me. We will find out. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for showing up again. As always, I need your help. I'm going over to Rumble, so go over there. I'm not going to take all of my videos over there. People are worried what happens to this channel. I'm going to keep this channel as long as I can. It's just I can't talk about a lot of things. In fact, I've just uploaded a video about the recent change in the Pentagon's understanding about UAPs. Very, very interesting stuff. You can go to Rumble and watch that. So go over there and subscribe as well. And again, if you want to be one of those people who says yes to the heightened energy, then here's my suggestion. Here's my gift to you. This is the only thing that I have to offer. Go up here to thunderwizard.com, scroll around and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Just simply press play, follow my instructions, do your best. I guarantee you if you follow instructions, things will shift in you. Things will change. Most people will feel a huge energetic shift. They will feel definitely some kind of energy, but at the very least, you'll be able to see, hey, my life is getting better. You will see when your life is getting better. This is why there's only 3 things that matter. Are you healthier, happier, more prosperous? When those things are happening at the same time, that in itself means you're shifting to a higher dimensional state, closer to your soul. If you're more unhappy, more unhealthy, and poorer, all those 3 things, it means that you're not expanding into your higher self. You're acting out of your shame and your self-sabotage. So this is what I have for you. Again, Interdimensional Revolution. Why isn't everybody buying that book? I don't understand it. You need that info. Go to Amazon Kindle and Audible. Go to audiobooks.thunderwizard.com. If you're outside of the US and you go to audiobooks.thunderwizard.com, click the link at the top, which will take you to the US site. You can also go to michaelwilliamdenny, DENNEY.com to see all of my books. Thank you, my friends. I love you all. And as you've heard me say, my greatest focus, the thing that I care about the most, besides my own personal bliss and happiness, is your evolution. And I am doing everything I can to give you the tools. Take advantage of these tools. Take advantage of this channel. Use it like a library and do the practices. Most important thing, take the action, do the practices. That's what, completely opposite of Christianity, which says all you have to do is just have a belief. It doesn't matter what you believe or what you feel. What matters is what you do. And when you take action and you do the exercises, that action itself, I guarantee you, will shift you, especially when you do it consistently. That's it for me. I love you all. I'll see you all next time. Take care.